let's jump in. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to teach you guys about web strategy, which should go pretty well. And we're gonna start with kind of the basics here. Let me know when you guys can see my screen. It looks like you can.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So what I'm going to share with you today is our basic framework when we're figuring out what the content should be in a website. So a lot of you guys may do this. You may do it in a different way. I'm going to show you the way we do it. So whenever we get a website project, we break it out into a few phases. The first one is the strategy phase, and in that phase, we do a sitemap or a web tree, so we determine what are the pages on the website, right? We do a wireframe, which is what we're going to go over today, and then we do what we call a key visual. And we can do a lesson on that at some point too, but the key visual is meant to be a design sketch that we make quickly without having to design a full website comp. It saves a bunch of time. It's kind of like a website meets a mood board. It saves a bunch of time with the client, gets them informed on the process early, and it saves us having to throw away 2 comps. Like if you present 3, you always throw 2 away. So it helps us kind of springboard into a full design later. So, but the since I think the reason everybody was curious about this particular subject is how it applies to your own website, we can skip those other 2 because you've got the design sorted and you've probably got your sitemap sorted. So let's jump into the wireframe and the content in the wireframe. So the way we like to do this is break it into sections. So the first section of the website, if we pretend this is a website, here's our navigation bar. There's always going to be a call to action in the upper right portion of the navigation bar. And you'll see 2 types of buttons in here. You'll see these black buttons, which are the primary calls to action. And then we'll have some just outline white buttons, which are kind of passive calls to action, or buttons that go to things like the About Us page or Learn More, or something like that. But when you see these black buttons, that's like us actually asking for a sale or asking for some sort of a conversion where they click on it, book a call, that kind of a thing. And generally speaking, the way the eye works, if you don't know, I know some of you are more savvy in web design than others, our eyes travel in a Z pattern when it comes to websites, cross like this. So you always want to have something important either along that path or along a pivot point of that path. So the top right corner of the website is what they consider the beachfront property of your real estate. You always want to have your call to action here, and you want to have in some sort of contrasting color so that it's obvious that it's a button that they should interact with. So that kind of covers the navigation portion. And then when we get into the intro or the hero area, we like to call this the why section, which is inspired by a lot of Simon Sinek's talks, his TED Talks. It also has a dash of Donald Miller in there. It has a dash of Christo in there. So we've kind of taken a lot of different ideologies and boiled them into one. But at the end of the day, you basically want this section to answer one, or I guess respond to one test. We call it the ADD test here. And since people don't have an attention span, we want in 5 seconds or less, we want this intro to explain what you do, why they should care, and how they should take action. Oh, looks like we might have one more. Oh, is that a question, Laura?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Is
jump
that
in.
Let's Get Started button going to take me to the same place as the Get Started button at the top corner of the Z?
Yes. Yep, it is. Absolutely. And you don't always have to have this button here, but I like to have it because this is a global element that's going to appear across every page, the navigation one. Yep. Good question. So the intro area is basically going to have something that qualifies that ADD test. It's going to have a photo or a graphic that's visually inviting, and it's going to have a focused headline. So we're going to start really broad strokes, and then I'm going to show you actual examples of what I mean by that, okay? So from the why, we jump into the how. So how are we bringing the why to life? So if we say like, get more sales, grow your business, how are we going to do that? And I'm going to show you a couple examples of how we do that in actual content. But it's usually one of 2 paths. You're either going to quantify it by showing a bit of your process, like how you do it, or a lot of times I like to use what we call the stakes, which are like what are the negative consequences they're going to avoid by working with you. And that works really well for our types of businesses. And I know a lot of times creatives don't want to use negative copy. There's a way to do that in a way that doesn't feel gross. Or you can talk about your value proposition. So it's like, never again have to deal with this, or never again have to blah, blah, blah. And again, I'll show you examples. Again, so you go from the why into your how and then into your what. This is where you're going to finally start talking about your services or your products if you're selling products. And this could be anything for you guys. It could be graphic design, web design, copywriting, whatever those things might be. And as we go down further, we want to get into some proof. So the proof is going to basically provide the logical reasoning. So you can highlight your client logos. I like to break the proof into two segments: the external, which is where other people are validating you. So highlighting client logos or a case study, and then also internal stuff. Internal would be case study. External would be more maybe a testimonial, not a case study. So like maybe you get a quote or reviews or something like that. And then the next bit is the guide. Now, some of you may want to be a figurehead in your business. And this is a good opportunity if you do want to do that, where you can present yourself as an authority. That's something our brand is going through right now. So this is kind of an optional thing. You don't always have to have it, but if it's not you, then it should be the brand as a whole. So you should be talking about like, this is what we believe. This is like how we're going to, make you be successful, that kind of a thing. And then the last bit is the call to action, which again, we hit them with a black button there to get that to come to fruition. So I'm going to show you an example of one of these filled in with actual content, because I think that's going to provide actual context. Go ahead, Laura. What question do you have? Oh, you're muted.
These damn buttons, man. Okay. I'm super curious to know where you would stand on like data capture, lead magnets, that sort of thing. That isn't featured on this layout. Are you saying that that's something we should introduce through like a pop-up? Or like the way that I've heard over different years, and again, this is totally homogenized advice from lots of different resources, is where you go for the big ask, and then by the time they get to the bottom, you're like, okay, well, here's a little ask. Why don't you just give me your email and get on my email?
So
like,
if you're more,
does that feature?
So if you're more savvy and you're kind of playing around with like funnels, basically, where you have multiple layers of calls to action, I would always work that into the body and usually do that here, where it's like the lowest entry point is offered here. That's actually what I do. I offer a 20-minute free consultation, basically, and then that leads them through. But on my site, that's all I'm selling. I'm just trying to get them on the call. I don't try to sell anything larger than that at that point. So it just depends on your business strategy and like how you're actually getting leads, how you're, if you have different funnels you're running them through. And I actually thought when we came up with this topic, I feel like this is going to be a multi-part series talking about like website marketing, because there's so many ways to split it off and be really granular. And, for audience A, they do this, audience B, they do that kind of a thing. But yes, I always, whatever your primary ask is, I would have that at the very top. But if you have a secondary, I would usually put that towards the bottom after they've kind of seen everything. And then maybe they're not willing to jump into like a $2,000 engagement. Maybe they would take something for free and get them into your email drip sequence.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Great question. All right. I'm going to show you an example of a typical, well, maybe not typical, but I think a standard website strategy that most of us use. I'm using Nicole and Chantelle as guinea pigs, so just know I'm not beating you two up. But after we've gone through this structure, let's take a quick look at their website, which there's nothing wrong with. This is how 95% of the websites I see look as far as from a strategy standpoint. But I'm curious if any of you can see any mismatches from the strategy we just looked at. So like looking at the intro, in this game, we're not beating anybody up. We're all trying to help each other here. But does anybody notice anything off the get-go? And if not, go ahead.
I say the top bar, I don't know if that's a hello bar or a top bar, but straight away we're going for a checklist opt-in, which is just what we talked about.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Very nice. I also see your beachfront property is proper. You got your call to action button here. Very nice. Anybody else?
Can I comment on the writing?
Yes, you can. Exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
So we maintain brands. And what makes you So I follow a similar structure to Mike. We've talked about that. Mine goes wow, how, and now. And this banner needs to be a wow. It needs to strike the imagination. It needs to answer the question, why would I? So we go to Mike's why. Why would we hire you instead of every other agency who create and maintain brands, which is us? What am I going to get with you guys that I'm not going to get anywhere else?
Exactly. That was the thing I saw too, Robert. Like, you've got, so the ADD test, what is it? Why do I need it? How do I buy? Okay. What is it? We get that. So you get a pass. Why do I need it? You do not have that. And then how do I buy? You don't have that either, but you do have a softer call to action to kind of, bring them along. So I'll give you incomplete partial credit on that one. And this is the number one thing I see across almost, even when our client websites come through, is that they're not articulating what is the problem specifically that they solve. Like, what is the result-based result of the problem after working with them, if that makes sense. Go ahead.
And I would also just add who. Like, it would be really great to know like what particular sector you might be going after, because I always call it like the X and the Y. Like, it's one thing if you just do websites, or it's one thing if you just do like pharma, but if you do like pharma websites, like you are the person.
I agree. And I think you guys are starting to get to it. I know you guys are going through website design, so again, I'm not trying to bully this, but like I see you're trying to get to it here a little bit. You're focused on getting your message out with solid results-driven designs. I think you just need to articulate it a little bit more specifically. So this is what I want to show an example of what I mean.
Before you move on, can I ask a quick question? Because you're right. For those of you who didn't hear us last meeting, we are in the midst of redesigning and rewriting this site right now. So we're currently in the midst of doing that to the homepage. So my question is like, how specific, because right now I'm thinking about like our new stuff in the back of my mind while we're talking.
Yeah.
And like, we also have sort of the secondary line that's like, Chantelle, what's the line that we have on there, the complex line?
That is what I'm trying to pull up right now.
It's too complex to remember.
And I'm just wondering if it's still too vague, because to Mark's point, like, we sort of market ourselves to what we call complex industries. So it's not super specific to like this industry, like, metals and mining is a good example for stuff that we do, but we also, it's not that we only do stuff for them. So we're kind of trying to skirt the line of like, these types of industries without necessarily saying a single one, because we're always worried about alienating the other like two or three. So that's like one of the balance struggles we have right now. But I guess I'm getting off topic and I don't want to derail us, but like, Chantelle, I was wondering if that line was helping with the why part.
Yeah, so we've got, your industry is complex, your brand strategy doesn't have to be. Is what we were
I like that as a blurb following up a more specific headline, but that's really, you're circling the right approach, I think.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on that line update?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
The two is that banner is actually about them, not you.
Yep.
You have to pose the question because the answer is you, right? And so in that banner, you can say something. Most brands have a solid presence, but you're not most brands. Like that's sort of, I'm here to elevate you to move you forward, because that's the whole idea of the branding. It's intellectual property. This is their exit strategy. This is what their value is. And it's going to be, it can also be your brand is the best way to realize ROI, or it'll be your best investment,
right?
Choose wisely kind of thing. And then you've got your answer to that question because you're posing the question. Annatto is focused on getting your message out with solid results driven. So that's the answer. So when you pose the question, because to most businesses, this part of their business is this strange things that happen behind a curtain that they don't understand.
Right.
And so that's what you want to say, is you want to plant that seed of doubt of, most brands trust their identity with AI or whatever, right? And again, you aren't most brands, and then so you're planting that seed of doubt, like, oh, shit, yeah, you're right. So post that sort of, that's like, oh, wow. Is that like, oh, I've got to fix that now.
Yeah.
It's like a tire place saying you should change your tires every 4 months. Like, shit, I haven't changed mine in a year and a half. I'm gonna get on that.
Yeah. I think Robert's right though. You've got a lot of the nuggets here. You just kind of need to tighten it up a little bit, because it's almost like I could almost see we maintain here's another thing I would say too. This is more of a personal kind of hot take kind of thing. I personally don't like to use words that I don't hear my clients saying.
Yeah, that's part of why we're working through a rewrite.
Yeah. So that's something to think about. And I'll show you how I've kind of crossed that bridge. And it may be a good fit for some of you, the approach, and it may not be for others. But that's a personal thing. Like I always try to think about my ideal customer, and I have someone in my mind that I literally know. And I'm like, do they say that word or this word, or would they understand, or would they say, what the hell are you talking about, Mike? You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of the litmus test on that. Was there any other hands up? Oh, I think Laura had hers up. Go ahead.
I think what you were talking about before, Nicole, about trying to articulate more detailed about who you're for, I think you could achieve that with some really great photography in this top banner, or even some quick, like a few seconds of different people in the agency working with clients on site. Like if you had a picture of a great office with like a mine behind it, people would be like, oh, it's industrial. I recognize that, but there they are helping them. Mm-hmm. Then you go to like a farmer and it's like a real classy office, like shiny and white. Oh, okay, yeah, that says it articulates like a million words without having to say a single one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And Chantelle, we've got that spot that's kind of a placeholder for that. We just haven't figured out the imagery.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's why you're in the group, because we're gonna you literally get to leverage all of the brain power, and
and we'll show you the new one, and hopefully you won't be like,
understood. Yeah, 100%. Any other thoughts for them, or should I jump into some examples of how I've crossed this?
I would start with, your brand probably sucks. We're here to fix it.
Yeah. Peter, go ahead, Peter. Sorry.
Yeah, I got a couple things. So, Nicole, this is the site that's currently active, right?
Yes, and it's been active for almost 10 years. So,
okay. A couple things jump out at me. The graphic looks like to me just like a placeholder. It looks like it's waiting for the real thing.
Like too abstract, maybe.
So, to me, it didn't jump out at me. And the other thing, I have the attention span of a gnat. They say you got to grab somebody in 2 or 3 seconds, 5 seconds. I half a second and I'm gone. Maybe it's just me, but so I think that those first few words, instead of trying to wake me up with a feather, I want ice cold Gatorade dumped over my head, or I'm just going to be just bored. So,
yeah, good note. And you have such a great bold color to work with. I mean, the orange tones, and you can really. I mean, that's a great color to work with.
It's a great color, but I want to be hitting the head with a sledgehammer a little bit. That's all.
All right, Roberta, what'd you have?
Well, I was just going to say the same thing that Peter was saying about sort of having a little bit of a generic look in terms of graphical. And I feel like, I was just looking at my own site to do the check to see if I've checked the boxes in the order that you talked about.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm actually pretty close. But one of the things I do is I just hit people over the head with that brand personality right off the bat, and have some choices, kind of a lot of the things that you're talking about right up at the front. One of the things I wanted to kind of mention is the term graphic design. There is something, I have just kind of obliterated it from my vocabulary a little bit, because I find that clients sometimes, when they think of graphic design, is the term that they use for like, oh, can you make me a flyer?
Yeah.
I need somebody to do do you know a graphic designer who could make a flyer, like almost like a commercial artist?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I do find that people who are looking for branding and marketing, like, oh, I need like marketing or I need branding, but they're sort of conflating those two terms, even though they're actually quite closely aligned. I consider them branding and marketing like two halves of a whole, you know. But
Yeah.
but anyway, but that's the thing. I feel like the term graphic design signals something to people sometimes.
Like it's too generic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we find ourselves using, with the type of clients we work with, we've been leaning a little bit more into like the visual communication side, because our clients are putting out very data heavy, text heavy documentation. And so the communication of their visuals is very important. So like, I kind of, you know, maybe that's like leaning more into that. Like it's a little more technical sounding, but it does, I think, resonate a little bit more with our general ideal client.
Yeah.
It does depend who your audience is too, because you could be more technical with some and not so much with others. So, you know, it just depends. Graphic design might be terrible for audience A, but it might work for audience B. It's hard to say, but I agree with Roberta. It does seem like it's kind of becoming a commoditized centric type word. So, Daniel, what were your thoughts?
So my first initial thing was the tagline down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Annatto is. I would probably change that to the same color as whatever you're going to use up at the top, or whatever the color palette is for the company. Maybe the logo or whatever. And then I would highlight other words in there like solid, if that's what you're going to keep, just positive words that your company is, and then whatever these solid words are, to just kind of like
a Cliff Notes?
Get them to, it's like an initial, I don't know, it's like subliminal highlight of what your company is and what it's doing.
Yeah. It's a good note. Absolutely. All right, let's jump into an example of at least how I crossed that bridge. And this was hours upon hours of developing stuff. I mean, everybody in Bonfire saw it, and Next Level Club saw it a million times, and our team saw it a million times. So I'll just kind of show you, and then we can maybe jump back in. So again, this is just kind of the general structure. Let's jump into, so the green is the text, the copy that we wrote. So this is the way I crossed the bridge. So up here in the eyebrow text, we wrote strategic marketing for purpose-driven brands. So I know the word brand is in there, and some of our clientele may not know that, but they definitely understand the context of brands with marketing and strategic marketing. So I tried to kind of just throw a fastball right over the plate that's kind of basic. And what we did is we set this up as H1 text so that when Google's crawling it, it's looking for those keywords. And then we used the more descriptive, more poetic type language. I think this is set to an H2, where it says the world is full of disposable brands, not yours. Now, again, let's talk about the ADD test. What it is strategic marketing. Okay, we understand. Why should you care? Well, if you're a purpose-driven brand and you're worried about feeling disposable or commoditized, and then how do you take action? Let's get started. And I wouldn't give myself an A+ on this. I definitely broke some of the rules, but I'm just showing you kind of how I crossed that bridge. I also want to show you an example of what we did for a client, because maybe that'll provide more context. So this was a client, we just posted this case study actually, the R Lab. So same thing. What is it? Why do I need it? How do I buy? That kind of a thing. So they're committed to clarity. So there's a little word play there, and then prescription for success. This one's kind of leaving it a little bit open too. But the context with this is that they usually have met a salesperson and they've been given some materials and they're going back to the website. This because their clientele are eye care professionals and they're not just like surfing the web. They have to be driven to something. So you can omit a little bit of that. But you at least kind of get a sense of like how you're kind of setting the stage a little bit. And then you can use the how, again, to quantify what we just said. So let me go down here and take a look at our how. So again, I like to use the stakes in a lot of situations where it's a service-based thing. So again, what does failure mean and what does success look like? We want to empathize with the problem and establish ourselves as an authority. So this is also called the guide section. So for those of you who've read the Story Brand book, Don Miller, it's all about that guide. And again, you can also lead with a value proposition. So this is kind of what we wrote. Having a great product or service is no longer enough. You do something worth being proud of, we make sure it shows. So in that copy, I'm not saying like brand strategy or like strategic this, or I'm using like words that I think my audience uses. You know what I mean? So like when I think about my ideal customer, who the actual specific person is, that's the kind of way I would talk to them in person. And then I have a little bit of language here that just further defines it. Clarify your message, elevate your presence, and thrive in a world filled with cheap alternatives and disposable thinking. Together, we will help you prevent, and then here's the stakes, losing customers to cheap imitations and knockoffs, getting drowned out by brands using manipulative or deceptive marketing. That's also a nod to how they view me. So like when I meet these people, I always have to get over that hurdle where they're like, oh, we hired a marketer before and like we didn't get any results. We just ran a bunch of ads. And so that's one of those. Feeling pressured to discount your pricing just to stay competitive. I think we all know customers who do that. We probably do that ourselves. Working with the wrong clients for your business to be successful. This is one too, where I call client or leads and I ask them like, how are sales going? Do you need help growing your sales? They're like, we're so busy, we can't take any more work. And I was like, oh, do you need help finding the right clientele? Are you doing work with the wrong people? And a lot of times I get ooh, I didn't think of that. And that opens the door. So I try to get that in there. And then the last one is paying for marketing that generates reports, not revenue, because we all know our clients have done that. So these are just things that I've collected from actual conversations with clients, and then I just put them on the website. I'm trying to say the things that they're saying literally on the website. So when you get that message with that message, you painted a pretty clear picture of like how you're going to make their lives easier, if that makes sense. Any comments on that or any questions on that?
Yeah, I'm going to raise my hand.
Yeah, do it.
Comment. Yeah, that's really interesting because I think I probably am dealing with more people who are having trouble finding the right clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not quite to that place yet, but I have felt pressure to do the one below, feeling
mm-hmm.
pressure to discount pricing,
mm-hmm.
and also paying for marketing that generates reports, not revenue. That's something that I hear a lot of people say, and I'm starting to wonder myself, as I'm starting to do more social media and more like meta ads and things like targeted ads, is like, am I going to, or can we obviously, if we're trying to break through all this noise that you're talking about, how do we know that we're putting our advertising dollars into the
mm-hmm.
right place?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And every client has a different type of problem too. You know what I mean? Like, so like I think about like the solopreneur, the owner operator type, which is the arena we're trying to move out of. I mean, God bless their hearts. We love working with them, but they're tough. But they're always worried about stretching every single dollar. If I was going after them, I would talk about that. Like, don't worry so much about stretching a dollar, knowing that the return on your investment will always be there. Something like, maybe that's not the language they say, but whatever the language is that they say, I would use that. You know what I mean? Like feeling like you have to do it all yourself. Those types of things. So it just depends. So like going back to the Annatto example, you guys were talking about you work a lot with people in the mining industry. Is there a more elevated term for that? Maybe it's resource extraction, or I don't know what the jargon is in that field.
Yeah,
Mark. Time for Mark.
Yeah.
There is extraction. It does deal with extraction. Yes.
So it could be like you're in resources. We can dig it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It could be.
Okay, and this is maybe where we need to change our focus, because the problem is we have clients and ideal clients that are not mining specific. So we also have like some high net worth finance is another big niche for us. And, like bio, like medical is kind of another niche for us. So that's probably a whole other conversation as far as like your audience goes.
Yeah,
but that's where we're kind of struggling with. Do we really dial down and like, if you listen to Philip, he's like, pick one and be super specific. And so
yeah,
we're always like skirting this weird area where we're like, well, if we pick one, it's such a specific niche with like minerals and metals. We're like, you know, is that the right thing to do? Or do we have to like really keep a slightly larger web? I don't know what the answer is.
Well, and we should definitely, I think one of our teaching sessions should be about determining your niche. I think that's a great, because that is a whole other question. Like, what clients do you do good work for? What, you know, it's like there's a whole Venn diagram of that, of like, you can provide value, they do something that you like working with, and then it's like they need you. It's like, what are all those things where they cross over? Because you always make more money talking to a smaller group that will all hear you versus trying to be overly general. And you can be a generalist, it's just harder to do that.
Yeah. And we're kind of like in the not quite a generalist, but like also not super specific. Like we're just a step down from super specific.
Yeah, and I went through all this myself too. It's kind of a process to figure out what you want to get after. All right, so who was first? Laura's green. Let's go, Laura.
I think you could be really smart with that in a split test, and it's going to create, about to open a can of worms, and I apologize, but they're really cool worms, where you could essentially have like skins options. And by that, I mean, like click here, like, you know, like a little tab on the left, like that comes out of the side, where it's like, right, biomedical, and you click that, and then your whole website, as if by magic, speaks to biomedical. Then you click on it like for extraction or mining, and the whole website looks like it's tailor-made for a mining company. And then you could say like an I'm not sure one for fun. But straight away from a UX point of view, I'm really interested to see what Nehemiah says about this. But straight away, you're showcasing yourself as people who can brand for completely different industries in a wonderful way. And ta-da, here's you're like busking for the first like song to show people, look, this is how we do it. But it's a hell of a lot of work, and it's like multiple photo shoots, a lot of videos, like colorways, like that's the worms.
Yep. Robert.
Yeah, so two things. One is I was a generalist. And when I decided what I wanted to do more of was CPG, so consumer branded work, retail, and packaging, I pivoted and made that our flag. Now, at this moment right now, 60% of our work is that. 40% is corporate work. We've got 2 clients that we're building out some corporate work in that. This is your public facing. This is like your portfolio. So this should be about the type of work you want to do. And if you look at your current portfolio, they do have some common things. One is they're in businesses that require a lot of trust. And they're businesses that involve a lot of money, value. So these are words that you really should tap into, because that's in their heads. Is that our brand is very important, and therefore it needs to build a sense of trust with our customers. And so you can start with your brand is not just, you know, your logo, it is trust, and make that kind of your cornerstone, is enabling your clients, particularly, you know, financial clients in the mining industry, and those that, again, it is trust. These are big contracts. These are big amounts of money. Can't take your branding lightly. It has to really do a lot of that heavy lifting. When they're not in the room, it has to say, okay, yeah, I'm okay working with this company, or, you know, those. So the touch points are very important. That's something, again, when you lean into that top part, you don't have to be industry specific. You need to hit that trust, and that, and in doing that, plant that seed of doubt, where like, you know,
that's a great point.
Yep.
Does our brand harbor trust? And that could be your lead magnet, as well as, does your brand elicit trust?
Yep. I was going to piggyback off what you're saying, Robert. Part of that trust too is using that language that they use, so that they understand, like, oh, they really understand like what we're about. You know what I mean? And using emotion as a part of it too. So I got two things I want to share real quick that piggyback off what you said, Robert. So like one is like with our audience, we do a lot of work in like the healthcare space, a lot of white label work. The way I look at it is it's like not the work that lights me up or lights the team up, but it kind of like just kind of pays the bills. It's good like baseline safety network. But I don't need to like go after those people because they just keep coming back to us. So it's kind of like on autopilot. When we updated our website, I wanted to use it as a tool to find the people we really want to work with. Like we're like, man, if we got this client, it would be so much fun. We could do so much good work for them. I know we can make them money. We'd get along great, all those types of things. So I would think about it like that too. Like, does some of those clients, do you need to market to them? Or is that just kind of a baseline that's just going to sit there? Yeah. And maybe you are more, so it's like a more passive type clientele versus like where you're actively going after someone, and like thinking about who is the perfect client. Like if we had 10 of them, we would have so much fun. We'd make so much more money. We would work so less hard. Think about those types of things. But to that trust point, it's like using the language they're using, hitting the emotions that they're feeling. Like with this clientele, they're frustrated because Amazon Temu's kicking their butt. Maybe they make a product that's like amazing, made in the U.S., and it's like inferior products are outselling them. That's frustrating. So let's talk about it. I agree with you. So think about that too. Like, what are the pain points your audience is facing? And looking at the R Lab example, we did more of a value proposition. So like, instead of the pain points with the stakes, we did like, talked about how they can differentiate, help these eye care providers differentiate. How they're going to be focus on quality, so their carbon neutral blueprint and their advanced technologies, and then holistic support. So a big part of this one was we don't just sell you eyeglass lenses, we actually give you the tools to sell them to your patients, because eye care providers are notorious for being poor salespeople. So you could flip it either way. It just depends. But that's kind of what Robert's getting at, what I'm thinking here too, is you just need to get some emotion and use their language. And then set it up like, yeah, we understand with a bit of empathy, and we're going to help you thrive, basically. And the whole copy thing is a whole nother thing. But for now, just X's and O's, what you want that to be,
Yeah.
Nehemiah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you kind of covered some of the things I wanted to say, but I think like kind of piggybacking off your piggybacking. If you looked at all the clients that you've had recently, and then maybe eliminate the ones you didn't like, but looked at the ones that went well, and then maybe did an audit of like, what's unique about this industry or this type of company, and then see if anything stands out. Like, we like this better. And then imagine maybe like in 2 years, if you did niche down to one of them, and then you imagine that you had more revenue or even the same revenue, but instead of like a mix of industries, you were only working with that one industry. Would that feel like bad, or how would that feel, do you think?
Do you want me to answer?
He said you think.
No, I think it's more of an open question.
Okay.
I think it'd be a different answer for all three partners, I bet.
Yeah. I'll say this. Go ahead.
Like a small, medium, large sort of situation. Like, I know what my answer is, and I'm probably on one end of the spectrum. And I know what Lindsay, who's not here, her answer would be probably at the other end of the spectrum. But no, it's a valid question. I mean, because it has to be enjoyable work, and it has to be work that we, if we were to really specialize and say, like Robert was saying, if 60% or 70% of our work was this, is that cool? Yeah. And I think, generally, I think we'd say probably yes, it would be.
Yep. I'll summarize it with this too. If you end up specializing, the bonus is the clients find you versus you have to find them. If you're generalist, right, you have to find the client. So if you're willing to do that, go for it. But it definitely becomes easier the more you specialize in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's take a look at the next little section. So we've covered the why and the how. Okay, now we'll get into the what. So this is finally where we're going to talk about products and services. So these are our products, or our services, basically. So we do brand strategy, we do creative services, we do a lot of business strategy. I don't know if you guys do that, but that's something we just do a ton of for whatever reason. My mind always goes there. But like, so for this, you could even get more granular. You could say logo design, brochure design, website design, or in your case, something you might want to do is clients by type.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we work with copper extraction. We work with whatever, you know, I don't know what those are, but like you could list, I would just try to find a common thread. Like, like Robert was saying, if you can find a common thread or, you know, throughput, so to speak there, that would be good. But the most important parts are the first couple, really. The why and the how, and then the what. And most people start with the what, which no one really cares about the what yet because they're not really interested in you as an entity yet. Let's talk real quick about what the validation looks like. So I kind of mentioned you might have some client logos. Not everybody would have client logos necessarily that are very prominent or maybe worth sharing. It just depends on what your field is. But everybody should have testimonials. And I think you guys I saw you had Google reviews like 17 5-star. So I would just pull those in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's like easy, no-brainer stuff. The way the mind works, like when people see your websites, I'll share a little insight on this. There's a recent study, I think it was Harvard that put it out, and they were saying that 95% of decisions are based off of emotion or the subconscious. Mm-hmm. And then the other 5-10% is logic. So you always want to lead with the emotional pull up here first, that connection. You want to use your bold language here. And you want to make sure it's very clear and you're not confusing anybody. If you're confusing people, they can kind of feel like, one, they don't know what you're talking about. Two, they could feel kind of dumb, like maybe you're talking down to them. You don't want that. And that's where I get worried about using too much brand language or like real like jargony type stuff. But once you get past that, the what is kind of the bridge into the logic, which is like they vouch for them, they vouch for them. So I like to have a couple different sources for external validation where someone's saying this about us, and then have one internal validation, which is a case study or something where you're talking about yourself. You're kind of boasting, so to speak, you know, where you're like, yeah, we did this project, here's an A to Z. But you don't just want to have this. You got to have that external part of it, if that makes sense.
No, that makes, yeah.
Any questions on any of that section? Go ahead, Brandon.
Okay, so this is something I've been kind of like struggling and really trying to figure out like what side of the coin I lie on, mm-hmm. right? So if we go back up to like your services.
Yeah.
So you know, one of my goals is to level up, and you know, and what I mean by that is to kind of go up that next rung on the ladder where, you know, you're dealing with maybe more you're dealing with companies who maybe they have a marketing, you know, director, and there's less hand-holding, less education, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, with that, you know, let's say you were to say like, okay, you know, we do logo design, we do advertising, we do graphic design, we do all these kind of, you know, there's a bullet pointed list of all of these services that you're able to provide.
Yeah.
Like I often struggle like, okay, do I go with that bullet pointed list, or do I actually become more solution based, right? So if I'm trying to get that next rung up the ladder, there's been a lot of times where I've had people or like clients come to me and be like, okay, you know, we need a logo. I'll be like, okay, well, great. Like, talk to me about why you feel like you need a logo. And then what we end up coming to is like, they actually need awareness. And is a logo actually going to get them more awareness, or is it something? Is it a totally different deliverable that's going to get them more awareness? And they just feel like it's a logo. So anyway,
that's a great question.
There's a question somewhere in there. I don't know.
No, I got it. That's a great question. It's a great question. And it actually nods to one of the other survey options of like how to get a budget, because this is like one of the key things, as you know, like get the foot in the door and then crack it open. So what I recommend on a website is talk to the things they're looking for. So they found your website somehow, right? What were they looking for? Talk to that service. And when you get on the call, that's when because that's just, you're getting your foot in the door. Really, the only intention of your website, in my case, is to get on a 20-minute call. Once I got them on the call, we're off to the races. but I just have to get them to take that first step and I have to make the first step seem so easy, which is, to Laura's point, it's great to have that secondary, like passive lead generator, lead magnet, that kind of a thing, where it's like this free thing or this thing's $20 or whatever it is. It's just, you're just greasing the wheels to get your foot in the door. That's all you're trying to do. So I would speak to the thing that they're looking for and then use the call as the upsell opportunity. But the reason we've structured this like this is everybody thinks of us as like a graphics company. I mean, people call us like Hardy Designs, and I cringe. So, and we're actually changing our name to Hardy Branding and Design. And we wanted to lead with our core flagship service, which is brand strategy. And that's why we've done that. So it kind of depends, but I also do have a creative services page that talks about website design and brochure design and all the other kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but that's the way we approach it.
That was good.
All right, cool. Laura, go ahead.
Mine's very similar to what Brandon said, but in my guise. So I'm interested, like, riddle me this. So I am a personal branding consultant, for those of you who don't know, and I work specifically with expert women. Based on what you've just said there, Mike, because I've got like 3 different versions of what I could put in the what section, where it's like you said, yeah, a competitor analysis. Most of my women don't really know that they need that. And when I suggest it to them, it freaks them out. Same with creating content. For some women, they're like, whoa, I have to go on LinkedIn, you know, like that. Or they could have like a podcast that's 5 years old. It's totally different. And then the same thing would be for positioning. So when you were talking there, answering Brandon's question, I was like, no, that's not it. When you first went through it, I was like, well, it's what I provide. So I have a signature framework, and it's the same framework for every single person I work with. But because it's signature, it's wildly different from woman to woman. So I could introduce my framework here, but then based on what you were just saying there, I think it's more about her problems. Like, she wants to leave her day job. She wants to establish her authority. She wants to grow with her business instead of her business. Is that the better, like, to map out her problem so she can be like, okay, yeah, it looks like this woman's for me. Oh my God, and I do want to leave my job. Yeah, I'm clicking on that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So yeah, I would first of all be working that into the stakes. Like, because you can use each one of these to talk to the different type of people, woman you work with. Like, you could say,
sure,
are you ready to leave your job and, you know, enjoy a career full of passion?
Your job, yeah.
Perfect. You know, are you blah, 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 are you blah, blah? I think that's why I love the stakes, because it allows you to like split off to different types of people. The way I think, so what, with your flagship offering, I would treat this as like your coaching, career strategy, you know, path work, whatever you call it. It should be this thing. And I would show all of the things. And maybe, is it a linear path? Like they start from here and start in here, but sometimes they skip this step or double down on that step?
Or like each step is bigger or smaller.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I would just lay it all out visually, like all of the steps, and then just articulate that, like, the path, it's the same general roadmap, but the path varies a little bit for each person, you know, and just say that. Like, some people need more work on this part. Some people need more work on that part. And that's what where the coaching comes in. I'll customize this so it's specific to you, and then just selling that as kind of a bespoke offering is really personable, and it's ideal for coaching, obviously, because people don't want to think one size fits all. So I think that actually works to your benefit. But I would just lay out the full, like, this is the full path, and then just say, you know, articulate that it's different, a little bit different for everybody.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that really
I love that.
helps. I was in like 6s and 7s there. I was like, which one is it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then if there's little modules that break off, you might have those. Like, it could be like market research or whatever those things. You could have those kind of splinter off, and maybe they're lower stakes entry points to get into the big flagship, you know, offering. Because like I said, most of our clients come in for websites, but almost all of them end up with brand sync.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
and I wonder if you could pair those, like, so you have your services that you go step by step. I wonder if you could match those up and, you know, visually show that on the website to say, this step is what we do,
right? But
this is the benefit to you. This has helped other people, you know, achieve this.
Yeah, 100%. You definitely could. All right, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about this whole niching thing, and one of the things that drives me nuts is websites that have just too many words. There's too much stuff and it's not super clear. And I think in the case that we were looking at Nicole's website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicole and
I think
Chantelle.
in your case, Nicole, it sounds like your clients are probably fairly sophisticated. And one of the advantages that you're going to have, especially if you consider narrowing your niche, is you don't need a lot of words you need fewer words, because a lot of the clients that you're going to get are coming to you already knowing what they need. Where a lot of other clients, they come to you because they don't know what they need. But by having the kind of customer avatar you have, fairly sophisticated client, they're going to know what they need. So you can be bolder in what you say, more precise, and you can use fewer words. And I think that's always a plus.
Yeah, agreed.
I want to add one thing to that real quick too. My general rule of thumb is to use less words in the beginning. So I'll go to our website, right? So less words in the beginning, and then start working in more and more as I feel like I've got them hooked. So I try to keep it all like blurbs, like Cliff Note blurbs. The other thing is, we're designers. Get creative with your typography and your layout. It doesn't have to feel heavy. You know what I mean? So like when you get into a page, like now you can start really talking about things, but get creative. See, there's Brandon. You can get creative about how you segment things out. So this is kind of going to your note, Laura, where you could talk about the pathway. You could do a website or a page like this where it talks about your coaching session, and it could be like module 1 is this, and then module 2 and module 3. And by the way, I encourage everybody to get a photo shoot. It's definitely money well spent. But yes, I agree with Peter. Like, you don't want to scare them off with too many words. But I think you can open up the floodgates as you get them hooked in. Like once you connect with them emotionally and you're saying those things that are like, yeah, damn right, then they're interested and they'll read, if that makes sense.
And if you use Comic Sans, guaranteed you got them.
Or Papyrus. Yeah. Okay, Nicole, you had a question.
I actually don't have a question. I just was gonna, Laura, to your point of like some of your clients need a little bit more of this and a little bit less of this and so on. Like I would almost lean really hard into that as well. Like that's your expertise, that you know that they're going to need a little more of this and a little less of this, whereas they don't know that. So I think that could almost be like a selling point in itself.
Yeah. And you could sell a phased approach, Laura, where it's like, there's no commitment, just phase 1. You just do phase 1. If you like it, move on to phase 2. You know, that's like I use that in sales all the time, where like, we'll be like, get a website and be like, you know what, you guys could really use a brand script for us to help write copy. And they're like, okay. And then they do that and they're like, you could really use a brand script. They're like, yeah, you're right. You know, and then all of a sudden they're like into it. So it's just the trust. Once they have the trust, they don't worry about so much about spending money, because they know it's going to come back. So Brandon.
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if there's more that you want to like kind of make sure you hit on, but Peter cracked the door and I was like, all right, I might walk through this. So I'll throw up to you. If there's more you want to go through. I
have a little bit more, but we're close. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's kind of a 2-part. So I think Peter, kind of nailed it on the head with, there's a lot of websites out there that require a lot of reading. And I even think about like Chris Do, you go to Chris Do's site, there's a whole lot of content you got to go through to kind of understand what the next step is. And I think it's awesome that you've kind of provided this groundwork and like the structure or blueprint for a website, but it's interesting because I think a lot of, I'll go down the Chris Do example, it starts to feel like a lot of other websites. It starts to sound like a lot of other websites. So we're given this kind of structure, this blueprint. Any insight on how to make it not seem like, like a cookie cutter kind of website,
the strategy, the structure is going to be kind of cookie cutter. It's all about the creative that you put into it. I mean, that's the secret weapon that we all have, because we're all designers to some degree. So like, that's where you push it one way or the other. It's also hard to compare to someone like Chris Do, because he is someone who is hyper specialized. He sells to creative professionals, right? And that's the only thing he sells to. He doesn't really do client work anymore. So everybody's going to him. So like goes back to the specialist thing. If everybody's coming to you, you can say whatever the heck you want at that point. But when you're going out and people don't really know you from Adam and you still have to build trust, like when people go to the Future website, they've already watched dozens, if not hundreds of hours of content. They're already sold, so it's more, his may be more call to action centric, but I know his business boot camp, when he had that, I don't know if he still has that up. He followed this model to the T, because it was one of the websites that I used in my research for building out our own. Let me see if that's still up. He does not have. He just has a landing page now. This is the business boot camp here. But he is saying some of that language. Let's see here. Take your sales game to the next level, close with confidence, and break through your revenue ceiling with Christo's flagship self-paced program. So let's just take this part out. Like, that's that kind of language we're talking about. It's very specific. It's direct. Let's see if it passes the ADD test. What is it? It's a self-paced program. Why do I need it? Because I want to go to the next level. I want to close with confidence and break through my revenue ceiling. And how do I buy? Boom. Mm-hmm. So the formula is there. It's just the layout. And see, like, look at, does this look familiar? Here's your stakes. Right. Are you facing all these things? Now they moved the validation in, the proof over, so it's a little bit earlier. Here's your value proposition. So he's kind of doing a little bit of both. Attract ideal clients, don't lose them, price your work right, do great work together. But it's not that different than what we did here with the check marks. It's just a different presentation.
Right.
And then how it works. So a step-by-step process. Now this is a really good thing. This would be something good for someone like Laura, where she's teaching like a framework. That's going to be a question people are going to have. A lot of our clientele, for us personally, their number one thing is like, I don't want to have to spend a lot of time with you. Not that they're mean, but how many meetings is a question I get a lot. How many meetings do we have? So I would never put this in there. I kind of want to gloss over that. But if you're just selling a coaching thing where it's high touch, I think it's a good play actually. And that's kind of what I had in that brand strategy page. So a lot of times, here's your guide. So this is the next part we're going to get to. Let's jump into this real quick. We'll finish strong here. So we went into the why, the how, the what. We talked about the proof. Here's the how, which is the part we were just talking about there. So what are the step-by-steps? Now, for Laura, I would probably move this up higher, perhaps. It would just depend. But then you also want to have the guide. So for someone like Annatto, I would have all three of you, team photo, and I would position you guys as thought leaders. Like, we've been in this field for X amount of years. We've worked with X amount of clients. We've helped so many, blah, 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 blah. All that stuff. This is where you finally talk about yourself as people. And then at the very end, you hit them with a call to action. So at that point, they understand what you do, how you do it, what it is, why they need it. You're validated, and you're because people have vouched for you. Basically, you've introduced yourself as a person. This is also an opportunity to use some personality in the guide portion where it's not quite so businessy. And then at this point, you're ready to get started. And I always like to hit them with something that exudes success, either a visual, if it's applicable. So for like Laura, it could be someone on stage doing a lecture. I don't know what those women are, what their journey is, but what the end point is. But could be for Roberta, like finished books. I don't know. It all depends. For this one, it's all about becoming the obvious choice and like not having to deal with all these like little ankle biter, competition. And then what I ask for is a 20-minute brand clarity call. So that's all I'm selling on the website is that call. And this just goes to my Google Calendar and it books a time. And that's as simple as it is. And that's when I use that new prospect call tool that I share with everybody. I literally just go through that on the call. And I'm vetting them as much as they're vetting me. So yeah. Robert, question, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to input on this, don't lose sight of the fact that we are creatives in a creative industry, and that's why people are seeking us out. And particularly now with AI, that definition is even greater. And that we are disruptors. I used my websites as a filter for clients I don't want to work with. Really, like if you've made it this far, then you're my people kind of thing. And, and I'm very clear about a couple of things. One is my job is to make you uncomfortable, because the problem you have right now is everything you're doing is comfortable. That's why you're seeking branding. That's why you're seeking people to help you out with that, is because you're too comfortable. So if I'm not making you uncomfortable, I'm not doing my job. Second thing is, my job here is to give you what you need, not what you want. I'm not going to be a yes man. I'm not going to output your ideas. Now, what we're doing is a collaboration. My clients are experts in their business. I'm an expert in amplifying that to an audience. And so where these two converge is the sweet spot. They are the subject matter expert at the table, and I use them as a resource on language that's used in their industry. What is typical here? What is typical there? And I worked with a company that manufactures manholes, and they're massive, and it's a big business. And what I didn't know is that they make them out of aluminum, and the competition make them out of steel. Steel rusts. Rust attracts bees and wasps. And so the people using these devices hate that. So one of the ads, and I didn't know that, one of the ads we ran was 90% of bees prefer our competition's product. Things like that. I'm talking their language, but I would never have come up with that without that collaboration. But again, they trust that when they look at something, and I had an argument, we'll call it a spirited conversation with the CEO of a high-tech company who kept vetoing things. And I finally got in a meeting with him, and he said, "What's going on?" And I said, "You have vetoed 19 of our concepts, and I need to understand why." He said, "I don't like them." I said, "I don't care whether you like them or not." And that kind of took him back. And I said, "Look, I see the watch you're wearing. I see the suit that you're wearing. I know which car is yours outside. You are in a company that is manufacturing products for middle class. You are anything but middle class. So what you like and what you don't like is not relevant here. You've made an incredible company here with an incredible technology. You've done all the right things, but you can't be involved in this stage of it because it's not your world."
Yeah, well said.
I have a headline for you, Robert. You can use it.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Build trust, not rust.
There you go. That's not bad.
Or built on trust,
That's cool.
not rust, or something like that.
We'll talk.
Laura, what do you got?
I wanted to ask the group if anybody's ever done any. This would be something that marketers would insist on doing. Has anybody before split test homepages to get like data and results? And what's your experience of that? Like, is it a massive waste of time? Tell me. No,
it's not I've done it, but mostly with clients that are selling CPG, direct to consumer stuff, where they're buying online. But the types, like for our website, we don't get that much traffic. It would probably take 3 months.
You would just get like statistical anomalies with like really.
We got 17 visits and forwarded the.
Like your test group might comprise like the majority of people visiting.
Yeah, group A was clearly your mom was in that group.
Exactly.
You know what I do though is when I'm at networking events or I'm meeting with prospects or clients, I try to see what they react to, like depending on what I say. That's something you can try doing because you can read them that way. So like at least with the copy. Like I said, like sometimes like I feel like I was saying things in the past, like talking about like presenting, and it's in that hot seat recording where it's like you're talking about color theory, and I can see their eyes glazing over. I'm like, I don't need to talk about that.
Well,
they don't care.
Yeah,
they don't care.
Those BNI weekly presentations, like every week, if you're kind of shifting what you're talking about with I think. Like then I'm starting to understand that in the one-to-ones. I'm starting to understand what language these people who are business owners understand.
Yep.
because and that's what I've been fashioning. I've actually been redoing my website copy and a bunch of other stuff because I'm literally trying to talk to those people with my reels and with my things, and it is because of input that I've gotten through a lot of the people in my chapter.
Yep.
Because they're those people. Right?
Yeah, you're almost too smart
So
for your
that
own
helps.
good. Like when we're marketing ourselves, you know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like, and people don't realize, you're like, you don't understand what I'm saying? Like, no.
No.
But it seems so obvious to us, right?
Yep. Yep. We're going through that right now with that fractional CMO service. Like I know hardly anybody knows what that is, except for like the C-suite people in big corporate, but I don't want that clientele. So now I'm trying to say just business strategy. You know, I'm just like, so I'm playing with what that wording is. All right, so we're at the end of the session. So this is what the homework assignment's going to be. I'm going to challenge everybody to work on their why and their how. Why is a must, how is extra credit. But I'll put a little framework together in the group, and I want for the next 2 weeks, and I know Chantelle and Nicole, you'll be doing it because you're working on your website. Think about that, rewatch the replay as needed, try to get the language that your clients use and get that emotion in there. And then we'll do a follow-up session where we talk more about niching and all of that kind of stuff, because I think that would be something beneficial for the group too, where we, because there's a whole framework for that too, trying to figure out like with a formula basically of like what's a good client for you versus what's not. So that'll be a good follow-up. But for now, let's just start with the basics, X's and O's on the website structure, the why, how, what. Get the why and the how dialed in, and then from there, it goes pretty quickly. It's pretty easy after that. So
remind us, Mike, does that mean that we present our homework to the group in the group, and then the next session we go through it?
Yeah, so I'm gonna assign everyone an accountability partner, okay, for the next 2 weeks. And then I will check in with you, not this week, but the following week, and see who's up for doing a hot seat. And then those people will share what they've uncovered. And we'll do the same thing like this. We'll do a little workshop. People can share their ideas and thoughts, and we'll just kind of play that by ear. Yep. All right. Great first session, everybody. Thanks for going along for the ride. Yeah, great notes, great feedback. I'll post this up in Creative Co here probably tomorrow. I'll get the video up. You guys can all check it out. And let's use the group as a space to ask questions if you get stuck. Remember, there's no dumb questions, and we're here to lean on each other and share each other's expertise. And I for sure don't know everything. I'm not the end-all be-all, but I'm sharing the process we went through, and it seems to work really well for us and for our clients. So for sure, you leverage it in your own business. So until next time, we'll catch you in Creative Co.
All right. So
Thank you.
All right, great.
Thank you, Mike.
All right.
Talk to you later.